morning, good afternoon, or good night, depending on what part of the world you're visiting us. Hi, I'm Daniel Marcos, CEO of the Growth Institute, and I'm the author of the book Impact X, How the Best CEOs Provide 10 Times the Value with Half the Drama. And today, we're going to have a super fun interview and conversation with Hilary Corna. And she's an expert on systems, processes, and you're going to hear a lot about this. But we're going to talk about the biggest mistakes companies make while building process. I usually coach mid-market companies scaling, and it's hard to build processes. They build them wrong. Then they outgrow the processes pretty fast. They say the process doesn't work. So we're going to get all the truth from Hilary, the good, the bad, and the ugly about the process. Hey, Hilary, how are you?
That was the best intro ever. Brilliant. The good, the bad, and the ugly. I should have that on my website. I'm so good.
So great to see you. We said before we were recording that we're going to feel like we're having a beer in a bar in Austin. We both live in Austin. We're not together in a bar, but we're going to try to feel we're there. Let me just give, I will read a little bit of your bio so people will know you, and then we'll start into the conversation. By the way, I will start with that second part. There's more to Hilary than just her work. She speaks fluent Japanese, amazing, rides a motorcycle, and is a twin. That's awesome. I would love to see your sister.
Well, and that's the fun part too. It's a boy.
Boy. Oh, wow.
Yeah, and he looks exactly like my dad, and I look exactly like my mom. It's very funny.
Cool. How is it to grow up as a twin, by the way?
It's so fun. People always ask us really crazy questions, like, can we read each other's mind? And we have those twin experiences, and the answer is yes and yes. It was always really fun. And we never fight. It's really interesting. We're very close. We don't fight.
Never fight.
No, I kind of feel like we're the same. We're the same human.
Wow. I fought with my brother so many times. So many times. But that was the learning, and we love each other now. All right. So Hilary Corna is a host of the UNprofessional podcast. You have to tell us what's that. Bestselling author, keynote speaker, and founder of The Human Way. She's also a former senior executive officer at Toyota Asia Pacific. So I imagine that's where you learned Japanese. How long did you live in Japan?
Yeah, so I always loved the Japanese culture. And when I got to university, I started studying the language, lived abroad for a while, and then moved to Singapore and worked for Toyota. And so for all in about 10 years speaking Japanese. It was a little rough these days, but I can certainly, carry my weight, and worked throughout the South Pacific. So Toyota's Asian regional headquarters was out of Singapore. So we managed everything out of Asia except for China, Japan, and Australia, everything else. So Indonesia, Korea, Taiwan, all the way over to India and Pakistan. And we were responsible for the Asian market. So demand and supply forecasting, product, brand affairs, pricing. And then obviously in my role as Kaizen leader and senior executive officer, we were in charge of teaching the dealerships process improvement. So teaching them the philosophies in the approach and how to, as entrepreneurs, predominantly, these dealerships are held by, privately held companies, and they're very often families. How do we teach them how to continuously improve their operations? And from there, I came back to the States and been writing, speaking, consulting ever since.
But you continue to travel a lot. You've been a keynote in over 20 countries with over 1,000 speaking engagements.
Yeah, I've been speaking since I was 26. I'm 37 now, so it's been a long journey. But at my peak, I was doing about 100 events a year. And then, of course, I was like, I probably need a personal life. So now I do less and I do more bigger events. But I love speaking, but really where my heart's at is working with the teams. On average, I work with 3 to 5 teams at a time doing these process improvement initiatives and helping them build their engine of their company way, right? When you hear the Toyota way, it's not this philosophy or just this visual that they put on their website. They can say that because they have such strong processes. And that's what we help these companies do. And that's my mission is I want to become synonymous with the name and word process. Like, you're not taught it in B school. You're not taught it in education. People teach you we learn things like enormous supply chain operations and enormous lean and case studies, right? Or you look at these textbooks on process and ops, and it's like 3M, Boeing, all these enormous enterprise level, multi-billion-dollar international companies. But CEOs, founders, privately held companies, they're just like, how do I get my people to follow my process, right? Or what the heck is our process? And that's the gap I'm trying to fill and build education around.
And my team loves you, by the way. You have a great way of
Well, you have a great team, the Growth Institute team, or
you're a big favorite of my team.
oh,
Talk about
no,
you. Your name
thank
comes
you.
up all the time.
I
So,
have a mission. I don't believe business has to be boring.
yeah.
And most people build business really boring because they believe that business has to be serious in order to be respected. And it's not the truth. We all have characteristics and hobbies and joys outside of work. And like, I really believe that like work can be fun if you make it be fun. So I'm on a mission to make process fun. And it's one of the reasons why I like clients that I work with love working together is like, it's not just about improving efficiencies, driving quality, or improving profitability. Like we can have fun talking about the future. What's possible with onboarding? What's possible with your sales prospecting process? How do we achieve your brand promise? How do we achieve your BHAG? Like you can design any business in the world. If you could do anything with your process, what do you want to do? And if you rally behind the positives, that's when it can be fun and exciting. What most of the time happens is processes are like such a drainer, such a buzzkill, because it's usually coming from a place of problems. You know, you hit that next scale in the company, you hit 10 million, you hit whatever your number is, 2 million even, and you have new problems. And so we constantly see process as problems, and we have to fix something, which makes us feel like we're never good enough. And if we reframe that as we're designing your ideal state. What's the ideal state of the Growth Institute customer experience? It's a place where employees feel loved and excited to come to work, where your customers are referring their friends and talking to you about talking about you online without you having to ask them. And then we go and design processes that create that. And we go, of course, we solve problems along the way, but it's about aligning towards this exciting ideal state that I believe is missed the most in all process work. And that's what we did at Toyota. We always start with rallying and defining the ideal state. And then how do we create that together? Way more fun and exciting than shit hit the fan, lost our biggest customer. Now we have to fix our onboarding and we all feel miserable about ourselves.
And when we at CEOs, we start talking about processes, everyone like, oh my God.
Everyone hates it.
I don't like it. Like,
why do you think that is though?
Because we feel they're systematic, boring things.
Yeah.
And I think that, or at least that's what it comes to mind when I think about the process.
Mm-hmm. And usually it is. And I believe over the last decade, they've been really bastardized. So as things like Lean Six Sigma, a lot of these buzzwords you hear, even just simply the rise in productivity as a conversation, right? There's companies that are like, we're going to make you more productive. Everyone's chasing time. And as everyone's chasing time, they've lost the essence of what process improvement is about. And at Toyota, we always said, process improvement starts with how do we improve the lives of the person going through the process? And as a result, the business benefits. But first we start about where's our employees struggling? Where are our customers struggling? And there's a whole methodology and framework we use to like identify that. That's super organized and systematic. But as a philosophy, it starts with how do we improve their lives? And then if we improve their lives, the business benefits. What's been happening over the last 10 years is that's been flipped on its head. And it's like, well, what do I do to benefit the business? How do I reduce costs? How do I increase revenue? How do I increase profitability? How do I increase quality? Even at the detriment of the person in the process. So one of the biggest mistakes I see organizations doing right now is they're building processes that are good for them, but not good for their people. An example of this, and the easiest way to think through this is when you are a consumer yourself and you experience a company and they piss you off with their processes, right? You see this in healthcare right now and medical experiences where they're like, here's this 18-page application form, fill this out in advance, or here's the intake form. And I'm like, This is your job, right? Fill this out, print it out, bring it to me, signed, everything, scan a copy. Like, no, you do all that. Like, why are you putting this on me? And I believe it's actually a hindrance to the customer's experience, and why customers decide not to do business with you or stay with you is because the push has been remove bodies, decrease cost. And then you destroy your customers' experiences. I have left companies, and I know you have too, where they're like, they make it harder for you to give them money.
I tell them, I'm trying to give you money, but you're not allowing me. No, but you have to go through the system. And I was like, but
This phrase, the system won't let me do it, will ruin you. And everyone says it all the time. The system won't let me do it. The system won't let me do it. We're actually triangulating instead of just people and process, right? Like an owner of a process, and the process itself is people, process, and system. And now we're humanizing a system, and people are pointing fingers to system as if it's a person, as if we can blame this thing. And unfortunately, that has occurred because leaders and organizations are putting systems ahead of people. And listen, I get it. Freaking love me some good technology. But we would always say at Toyota, and if there's anything you take away from this podcast, I hope it is this, which is you design the operation first, and then you match the tech to the operation and process that you need. You do not implement tech and then change everything you do and how you do it to match the system because of its default settings. This is why Salesforce is establishing the reputation that it has. Salesforce as a product is amazing, right? No one's going to argue with their success. But why is it there's suddenly this population of Salesforce consultants that are growing like wildfire? Is because the system's implemented and there's no people or change management. And now someone gets to get paid a buttload of money to come fix all the problems that you had because you didn't design your process first. You just implemented a system and then did it their way. So at the core, what I am saying is your secret sauce, your special, not your Toyota way, your whatever company way you are, your Growth Institute way, is built based on how you do things. It's how fast you get a quote out, and that's standard in SLA. It's how your welcome letter that you send during onboarding that's unique to you. It's the gifts you send on customer anniversaries. It's your unique processes all packaged together and branded under your company way that make you who you are. So don't give that away by implementing a system and just doing it how they do it. Then everything you know to be true about your industry is lost, and you just give it up for the sake of tech automation. So tech can be used, but we always said at Toyota, use the right tool at the right time. And you have to know your processes and speak super clear on what your standard is so that you deliver the same way, the right way every time, your company way, then bring tech in to make it better, not the opposite.
So before we go into understanding what mistakes companies make and scale-ups make, just give us, what's the difference between Six Sigma, Lean, Kaizen, Toyota Way? That we heard buzzwords and we're kind of
yeah. So I will put it this way. It's the easiest way to understand it.
Please.
Without you going and doing a stupid course online that you're never going to actually do anything with or whatever else. Lean, Six Sigma, and Kaizen are three different things, but they all come from the same initiative. The same goal, the same initiative is to improve. The difference is how they improve. So Lean, Six Sigma are practices. Kaizen is a philosophy. I'm going to start with Kaizen because it's the easiest to get out of the way, and then we can talk about Lean and Six Sigma. Kaizen in Japanese is actually directly translated to change for the better. It's not continuous improvement as you hear. Continuous improvement is just our westernized, Americanized regurgitation of it. And it works, right? It's good enough. But I believe, especially in international operations and international languages, that you should really look at the core of the language and the literal translation. Otherwise, you'll lose the intention. Kai means change. Zen means for the better. Yes, Zen is a religion, is a type of Buddhism, but Zen actually in Japanese means for the better. It means change for the better. Kaizen as a whole is a philosophy that as we go about day business, and if you're listening, you can't see my hands, but let's say you're just floating and on like a flat surface and it's day to day, you're executing. And it's not until something drops, like something goes wrong, we lost an A player talent, we lost a huge legacy customer, or we have a new competitor into the market, that we change. And then now your hand goes up, right? So we lose something and then we change. What Kaizen, change for the better philosophy as a whole, means we change when there's nothing wrong. We're always changing, and we have a system, an approach, and a standard by which we change, which is what I teach my companies, how we change so that we're changing when nothing's wrong ahead of the curve. So if you're looking at two change curves, the one that's always changing is steeper than the one that waits to change until something goes wrong, because you're growing incrementally over time, which is compounding for all my math nerds. You're compounding the change versus making one big, huge change when something goes wrong. And this is the biggest difference between the East and the West. And I know your listeners are going to be both, which is amazing. The Eastern philosophies does not believe in one-time initiatives. Like, oh, we're gonna bring this outsider in, or we're gonna make a quarterly priority around onboarding and just like do this massive optimization of onboarding. Well, what happens when you do that? Everything before onboarding from the customer's experience perspective and everything after onboarding from their perspective does not match the same level of quality. So as a consumer, when you go into a company, and I know all of you have been there before, where you're like, they nailed sales, like totally blew it out of the water, impressed me. This guy's great. I love this salesperson, hands me over to onboarding or hands me over to fulfillment, install, whatever that next stage of your post-sales experience is. And they're horrible. And they're like not communicating clearly. And they're making you fill out the same form multiple times. And they said they sent you something, but you never received it. All of these incredibly annoying, rudimentary process details that no one wants to deal with. We generally lump this up into the word consistency. How do you drive a consistent experience the same way, the right way every time? That's what we're aiming for. They're doing that. That is a result of not having an inconsistent change management. So they're doing one-time initiatives in certain areas of the business versus changing over time like Kaizen does. And so over time, you get ahead of your competitors and you start to build this reputation of having the best processes in the business, and people come to you to see what you're doing. That's what Toyota has built. They're always changing.
Great.
Yes. And pardon?
That's what they call the Toyota way.
Toyota way is more than that. That is a piece of the Toyota way. Yes, correct. But the Toyota way is the philosophies and processes that make both the company and the culture. So it's been built up literally over, almost 100 years. So it's much more than that. But yes, it's a piece of it. So Kaizen is a philosophy of changing and having continuous change through improvements that are typically led by someone in ops, but company-wide. And this is what I teach companies. Specifically, I like to focus in the service-based business, because another myth in process that we see, and I've seen especially in the West, is people think it's just for manufacturing.
Yes.
And it's so peculiar. Every business has process. It's just that it was born from manufacturing, right?
But let's talk about process for service companies. We all think about manufacturing or products that you use process. What's the best way to implement, or why are important process and service companies?
Oh my God. Well, you're looking at a person going through a process instead of a widget going through a process. It's even more important. It's even more important because the margin for error is even more high. It's easier to control a physical product. It's harder to control a
That's 100% true.
person.
Yes.
And you want to control the person because you want to maintain a level of quality. We do not standardize processes to fucking blow our minds out and be bored as hell, put them in a cloud folder somewhere and never look at them again. We standardize processes to ensure that what we do as a company is delivered the same way, the right way every time. We're not trying to control. You're trying to stand for something. You're trying to define your level of excellence and quality and then make sure it happens every time, right? And so process is important for service-based companies because when you're managing a relationship and the delivery of an experience to a person, so many more things can go wrong versus when it's just an object. And I do want to answer your question about Lean Six Sigma. Forgive me, I went on a tangent because I could talk about this stuff all night. And briefly, the most easily put, so you don't have to rack your brain about this, is Lean improves processes by looking at how to reduce variability and increase quality. So the same way, the right way every time, Lean is like, where is there waste?
Yep.
Wasted time, like someone's waiting for something. This is like the perfect example I see in almost all companies is the time it takes to get a quote out. It's unbelievable. I just worked with a company and they were getting quotes out within 6 weeks. And this is super normal. It happens all the time. And so waiting is a type of waste. Motion is a type of waste. Defects is a type of waste. How many things? And I know all of you are just probably giggling because you're like, oh my God, she's like reading my brain. But we see it all the time. Rework, duplication of work. How many times does your onboarding processes not really get all the information you need and you have to go back and get more information? All of this is waste.
We like
So,
because we're nervous because we know what you're telling.
it's okay. We can talk. We can talk later. I'll help more, however I can help. But the Lean side of things is looking at where there's waste and reducing waste to increase quality. Six Sigma looks more at variability. So in very simple terms, when you do things the Six Sigma way, you're looking at how variable is this? That's why you look at the standard deviation. How variable is my, conversion rate? How variable is my delivery timing or my production quality levels? How variable is it? And then you want to keep within a standard deviation of variability. But they both improve processes. So one is reducing waste. The other is trying to reduce variability. And there's reasons why you use both, but in very simple terms, all companies have both. And so I don't use Lean or I don't use Six Sigma. Fun fact, Toyota doesn't use either of those. Those words come from other people, not Toyota. It is not what I teach. And I do believe that most companies don't even need them. Of course, the 3Ms of the world, the Boeings of the world, they need those crazy advanced operations that you see when you Google these words. But everyone who's listening, 5, 10, 20, $100 million companies that are privately held, led by founders or original founders, you don't need that crap. What you're thinking is, I am trying to grow. Is everything going to break down when I grow? And the way you prevent it from breaking down is by starting to build an operation around process improvement. It sounds almost like matrixy, but you want to have clear processes to improve processes and create capacity for growth so you're not leaving money on the table.
So let's talk about growth and
Let's do it.
Come down to scaling companies.
Mm-hmm.
What are the typical mistakes scaling companies do? And by the way, very few have processes or they have broken processes or unfinished processes.
Yeah.
And how you work with them, like what are the mistakes they make and how do they have to get it right? Like if I have a company doing $10 million, $20 million and said, I want to get it right, what do I have to do?
What a great question. I think we need to do a part 2 and a part 3 and maybe once a quarter, I just become your process expert and we just talk about the next theme of, actually, I love this idea. This is a good idea. So I'm going to break that down into 2 separate answers to be as tactical as possible. One thing that all companies can do is a part of what we do, but you can do it without working with me, so to speak. And all companies are challenged with right now is the standardization of how they document their processes and where they document their processes and what they name their processes. So if you're listening right now, don't worry if I say this and you're like, oh crap, that's us. Don't worry, you're not alone. It's literally all the companies I talk to, which is, you raise your hand, which is you have 10 different people doing it 10 different ways.
Yeah.
So your processes are usually stored by department. They're usually stored in scattered places, some on people's laptops, some in the cloud, some in their personal file, all over. And then they have completely different names and they have completely different structures. So those are the mistakes that every company can like hop, skip, and jump a leap by just doing this, which is one, choosing one way of standardizing your processes, one template. We have a tool to do that. We're going to include it in the show notes so that you guys can download, because I didn't really ever have one because I was just like, just go find one online. It doesn't matter. And then over and over, people kept asking, and I was like, okay, I'm going to make this so that you can just use this one way. It does not.
We're putting a link below the podcast.
Yes.
Notes.
Yes. So you can use this if you need it.
A lot of the things that Hilary's talking, you're going to be able to download them below. So don't worry.
Perfect. And so the first is just choose one way to put your process to paper.
One way. Okay. Do you have any way that you recommend?
That's what the download is.
Okay, perfect.
Yeah, it's a template.
Perfect.
So the mistake is you let everyone do it their own way. Each department do it their own way. And then you have all these different, so none of them look the same. You can't read your processes. So choose one way. And if you want to use mine, have at it. It's, I think, the best. A second is choose one place to store them. Again, doesn't actually even matter where. The mistake is in not choosing and not defining and leading as a company and allowing everyone else to choose. This is not good. You need to protect your processes, because what happens when your best people leave? They take all that knowledge and it goes out the door with them. And then when the new person comes in, you have to spend hours and hours on-job training, OJT, over and over, verbally explaining things that might actually not even be the truth anymore because you don't do it. So there's so much risk mitigation to team members in growth by not having your documentation in one place. Have it one place, owned by the organization. I believe in the cloud is better. And the last piece is naming conventions. Pick how you're going to name your documents. It sounds like, what the heck is this girl talking about? Why is she telling me to do this? But how many times have you seen documents where it's like V1, 2.2, 2.02, 2022, Hilary Corna, HC, blah, blah, blah. And then you don't even know what the document is for anymore because the name's been bastardized. Is it for onboarding? Is it for the onboarding call script? Is it the onboarding call script system or the, it's like you can't even read it. And so all this hard work that you've done is lost because just simply the name of the document's wrong. So naming conventions are just simply coming up with, again, all about standardization, reducing variability. We set a standard for how you name your documents. And it could look simply like process name, department, date of last revision, right? But you standardize it. Just pick one. It doesn't even matter how you pick it. Just pick one and then make sure it's done for all. These are the three things that are like the easiest, fastest. Please, for heaven's sakes, do them so that when I come around, you don't have to do them and you don't have to pay me to do it for you, because these are things that anyone can do and drive an enormous value in terms of protecting your asset of knowledge.
So simple.
So simple, but we overcomplicate process. You Google these massive words and you feel like, I can't even do this. I'm not an expert in this. You don't need to be an expert in process. Everyone has process. Even CEOs do process. And I want to really dispel the myth that it's scary or hard. But the fact is, we love when problems are easy to fix. I teach my CEOs all the time, don't identify with problem. Like this problem has to be so difficult to solve or it's not worthy. This is the core root cause. Like, oh, I'm going to beat my chest. If Hillary's not going to come in and fix some enormous problem, then why would we do this? No, I don't want you to have big problems. Essentially, what we actually do is we chip away at problems until they get easier and easier and easier. And then it's about maintaining a level of calmness, right? Growth Institute Scaling Up always talks about reducing drama.
That's
And
what this
drama is caused when people don't know what they're supposed to do, when they're supposed to do it, or how they're supposed to do it.
As you were explaining that, something that came to my mind last week, I was looking for a proposal I got last month from a supplier. And I said, what was the name of the proposal? So I put proposal, whatever, and I have 200 documents in my.
Yes.
So I said, Growth Institute. I have 20 proposals that are called Proposal Growth Institute. So I had to open each one to try to find the proposal that I was looking for with a client. Instead of saying, hey, proposal, Growth Institute, implement scaling up, or proposal, or whatever, I would have found it really fast.
Do you know how many times I've heard this simple experience? And you're not alone. It's like the evolution of technology. It's just like the natural next need that's been born out of our implementation of systems. So it's no one's right or wrong or bad or good, but it makes us feel horrible about ourselves. And we're like, oh my God, I have so many other things I could be doing with my time. Why am I making this mistake? And you're not making this mistake. It's not your fault. It does. Yeah. It's not your fault.
Research from this company.
Yes. And so just simply doing those three things of picking one way to standardize, picking one way to store, and one way to name will fix so many problems. And this is, like toxicity in culture when they talk about, not they, but these ambiguous people, when you hear things like, oh, it's like a dark underlying, you don't see it happening. It's happening in the distance, in the dark, in like behind the scenes, and then it creeps up and becomes a huge problem. That's the same with these. When you make these mistakes, you don't see that your people are spending 90 minutes looking for a file. You don't see that your people are storing things on their personal computers or sending them to their personal emails to save at home you don't see these things. And so they're toxic. And it only becomes a problem when something explodes. But if you could actually track and do like a time study, it'd be quite fascinating. But who has time for that? Obviously.
You said you're going to divide the answer in two. That was the first three. And then the second is
great point. Really
someone to fix. Like when do you call someone to fix the big stuff? And what's the big stuff?
A concept that's been really transformative. And once you hear it, you can't really unhear it. And I hope is really helpful for all of you listening is when you improve processes, those three things I mentioned before are like little things we have to put in place in order to build your company way. They're like the necessary evils to organize our work and super simple to do. But the concept that I wish more organizations could understand is that when you improve processes, you don't want to improve them scattered, disjointed, and disparately. What do I mean by that? We kind of wake up on or we're like, hey, ops team, it's Friday afternoon. Can you go ahead and edit the welcome letter? And they're like, huh? And then what happens? A department, a customer experiences a company.
Yes.
And so we have to flip it on its head. I'll share with you what we do here in a moment. That was funny. I just said do like poop. What we do is we stay wide in the customer experience and high. What mistakes are often made is companies stay narrow and deep. Like the example I shared with you earlier. I go, this quarter, we're going to do an onboarding initiative. And we're going to optimize onboarding and make it amazing. And we're going to add gifts and we're going to add personal videos to the end of letters and all these amazing process improvements. But then nothing before that and nothing after that matches the same level of quality. So the customer is like, what am I really getting? This company seems untrustworthy, disjointed, all over the place. So the mistake that we transform is improving based on department and improving one-time initiatives to achieve this perfect ideal state. No, there is no perfect ideal state because business and ops is always changing. You spend 6 months improving your onboarding experience, and 6 months passes, things change. You're going to need new things. Some customers are going to be lost. Maybe you have a new competitor, and what you spent 6 months building is completely irrelevant, or now you need a new thing. There's this misnomer that, or a myth that, like, I improve a process and I'm done. I can wash my hands of it. And what I wish more leaders and organizations would understand is that operations is designed to be indefinite. Why is Kaizen continuous improvement? Is because you can never just wake up next Monday or next quarter and be like, I never have to improve. I have zero problems. And you might be feeling like, oh shit, that means I'm always gonna be fixing things. No, reframe. It means you always have opportunity and you don't have to do everything now.
Let me connect this with the last question and
Yeah,
read
go for it.
companies. How can they use Kaizen to
Perfect.
help the business that are scaling to manage the peaks and the valleys of death and the valleys of growth? So
Exactly.
at
This
scaling,
is
we
how,
talk about the
so
stages, they go through all of that.
yeah. So you put time limits on it. So instead
What do you
of
mean?
saying, yeah, I'm going to explain. I know it's so exciting. Instead of what we normally do in business, which is we establish priorities based on an area of the business or a problem to be fixed.
Right?
No, we flip that on its head and we always improve, but we improve by parameters of time, and we don't improve by department. We improve by what the customer needs. So what do I mean by that? Instead of looking at what we traditionally think of in business as process, we look at an area of the business and we say we need to reduce the lead time to close a deal, or we need to increase the average contract size, or we establish a theme.
Yeah.
But that theme is based on what you want in your business, not on a problem your customer is experiencing, or employee. It can be both.
That is correct.
So instead, what you can do to not only manage the peaks and valleys of growth, but also lead the competition and become number one and establish a reputation where everyone comes to you to see what is being done next in the industry. Duh, Toyota. And it can be done for tiny companies too. Do not feel like it's untouchable because it's this massive name. What we do is we set a time limit of 30 days and we roll out versions of improvements. For anyone who's still listening, A+ to you, because this is the gold right here. We roll out versions of improvements just like product development.
So we said by September 1st, we're going to launch this.
We have a go live. Yep. So the whole approach has a go live. So imagine your phone. You know how your phone rolls out updates and you get a prompt and it says we have an update. It has like 120 improvements, right? Of all these bugs. What if your phone didn't do that? And every time it had a tiny bug update that you would never even notice or see, like the checking of the onboarding in Salesforce or whatever, you would never use that phone. That is what we do to our people and our customers in process.
Wow.
We're
Wow.
like, this tiny change and this tiny change, and we cause chaos, drama, confusion, and you hear things in the culture like, I wasn't involved in that decision. Since when did we start doing things that way? Well,
Wow.
no one told me, so why should I do it?
So you send a release and said, hey, on October 1st, we're going to release the
Send a
improvement,
release.
whatever. And you
So
do
we have
yes, of all the processing, all the departments.
exactly. So the approach is about a 3 to 4 month lead time for every version.
Okay.
We identify the process that we identify the problems from the customer's perspective, not what you CEO feel like doing today, but your problems which drive value. Improve your customer experience, drive value. They're completely equitable. We identify the problems, we prioritize them to the ones that are going to drive the most ROI in the shortest amount of time. Also, a big mistake I see happen, we fix problems that aren't problems for customers, so you don't get any value. It's just someone's ego. And then once we prioritize, that sets the scope for your improvement. So we generally look at about 20 improvements in one go live, and then we set the timer, and we have 30 days to develop those improvements. We call them countermeasures. So you in one go live, you might fix a sales call script with an onboarding welcome letter, with a gift during delivery, with a follow-up call. You're looking at wide and high in the customer experience across the whole experience, not in one area. We aggregate them together because the power of process is when you improve a ton of tiny things, not one big thing. That is what creates inconsistency from the customer's perspective. And we set the go live date, let's say November 1st, 2022. Go live date, let's say November 1st, 2022. And then that is a clear delineation when your people can say, from that day onwards, we do things this way, the Growth Institute way. And then you have your Growth Institute way V1, another 3 to 4 months. You roll out another 20 improvements. That's your Growth Institute way V2, V3, and then we go until you don't have problems, or at least really there's no point where that happens, but you go until you're sustaining a level of quality. Then you're maintaining and not reacting.
Everything on the podcast. That was the part that really, by the way, the 3 things and that part just changed everything. Because I never thought about do a release of systems or process on like tools and stuff. You think about technology, and we do releases of technology, but we never do releases of improvements in the customer experience or releases on the process of buying or all that.
And as a result, companies are remaining stagnant. They're growing in different directions. They're improving processes scattered. It's not aligned towards one direction. And then also they're leaving money on the table. Typically, when you kind of improve processes in random directions, what's happening is that people are afraid to grow because they think things are going to break down. So they don't close that next deal. They don't bring on that new partner because they're like, oh God, it's already barely surviving. But you have to go and drive consistency in your processes so that you can build capacity, time, space, energy, money to go and add those other things. What's happening is your processes are stagnating your capacity. So people are afraid to grow. And that's what this helps do. Build the consistency, create some time and capacity, and then continue to drive differentiation. Last thing I'll leave with you before we wrap up. You cannot differentiate your processes until you have consistency. Don't confuse the two. When we improve processes, we love the sexy stuff, right? Oh, let's establish a gift giving process for loyal customers, or let's start a lunch and learn for whatever, for our customers. Let's, share case studies about our customers. We get excited about building processes around stuff that's new and or easy, the differentiating. We do not get excited about the consistency. Why is there wrong addresses on the form? Why do we have to reach out twice for the contact information? Why is the point of contact the wrong person? That is not sexy. So we have to reframe it. And if you know it, first drive consistency, then drive differentiation. You can make it fun if you want to. But the mistake that you're going to make is if you focus on the differentiation stuff, first of all, you're never going to deliver on it. But the perception of the customer is, why are they sending me a gift? I never even got what I paid for. Why are they remarketing to me? I didn't even like them the first time. Do not confuse the two. Drive consistency in your processes. Improve so that you're delivering the same way, the right way, every time, your company way. Then only you can go to the differentiation.
Love it. Okay,
this is fun.
A 2 and a 3 and a 4 and a 5.
Great.
And as you started saying, usually when we think about process, we think about pain, boring things.
Yes.
But it really, if you do it the right way, it could be exciting to do a release, a version 1 or version 2 or version 3 of things, and just continue improving if you see it that way. And we have improvements all the time, but we just do today, but we don't.
Okay, yeah. I have to take one more minute to say this.
Please.
I'm going to be the longest episode you've ever released. I'm just kidding.
I love it.
This is another myth, another misnomer is people are like, well, this is on top of the work I already do. No, You have to improve your processes all the time. And in fact, you're expecting your people to improve the processes. So for all my leaders out there, you're like, why aren't they improving? Why didn't they come up with a better way? Why are they still doing it this way? But they don't know when or how to.
So sad.
Your people don't have the knowledge that I just spit out. It's not taught. I only know because I worked for Toyota and then I brought everything back and then did a little jujitsu and added some things that I thought were missing, like the release date. Toyota does not actually do that. I saw this need and this pattern happening in Western companies, specifically service-based. And I was like, you need a clear-cut date. And so if you're thinking this is more work on top of your work, that is a misbelief. It's actually inaccurate. What you're doing, just like Google did, is you're saying, okay, instead of everyone randomly improving your processes in different places with different approaches and different levels of expertise and knowledge, we're going to carve out a little bit of time and give you the tools, and we're going to improve as one company. We call this one team alignment. We're not improving by person because you got some freaking great A-player talent that know what they're doing. We're not going to improve by department. We're going to improve as the company, and we're going to only do it in a scoped amount that's palatable to the capacity of the organization. And then we're going to do it in 3 to 4 month lead times incrementally so that they exponentially improve each other over time. Boom. You're already improving your processes. This is just standardizing how you improve your processes so that they stick and you don't need to go back to the same problems.
How you
over
name
and over
them
again.
and where you store them.
And this is the thing. People ask me, number one question I get asked, how do you get people to follow process? Everything we just said. Do this, your people will follow. Do it the other way, they don't care. It's the last thing they care about.
Hate them and they're going to be mad with you because
They hate them and they're going to be mad at you. And it's not their fault. They don't know how to do it.
Hilary, always a pleasure with you. We're due to have a beer in Austin.
I would love that. I love this work. I feel so grateful to have been blessed with it by the best in the world. And my mission is to help reframe it as not a terrible thing, that it is the answer. It is the missing piece to all of your growth strategies. You can have an amazing product. You can have an amazing culture. If you don't have process, you will fail. You will suffer in horrible, horrible ways, and you don't deserve it. You deserve peace of mind. And so please find me on Instagram. It's just my name. There's only one of me, Hilary Corna. Also on LinkedIn. Feel free, however I can help, reach out. Like
website, hilarycorna.com.
hilarycorna.com. You can find out a bunch of tools and more information there.
Below, there's going to be a link so you could download some of her tools for you to start implementing, and some show notes so you could just follow after this, download, go and start implementing and getting it right.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. And yes, we're due for us number 2. Thank you very much. Have a great day.